Hello, and welcome to Dr. Mercola's Cellular Wisdom, where we explore health insights that keep you glowing from the inside out. I'm Ethan Foster, the man who watches the human condition with equal parts curiosity and mild confusion.
And I'm Alara Skye, the one who calls it like she sees it. Some say I'm sharp-tongued, but I prefer to think of it as verbally efficient. Today we're diving into vitamin D, especially for moms-to-be, little ones, and anyone who isn't a dedicated sun worshipper.
I've heard vitamin D called the sunshine vitamin. My question is, if it's so sunny, why does it seem so many people remain in the nutritional equivalent of a pitch-black room?
Because it's not as simple as rolling up your sleeves and standing outside. There's a bit of chemistry involved, plus individual factors like your genetics, diet, weight, skin tone, and proximity to actual sunshine. Apparently, not everyone lives on a tropical beach.
Let's start with the basics. Vitamin D comes in two main flavors, D2 and D3. One is from plant sources, the other from either sunlight on your skin or animal-based foods. If you're missing that out in the sun all day lifestyle, you might be on the D-deficient side.
Precisely. And let's be real. How many people spend all day frolicking in the sunlight? Most of us shuffle from the office to the grocery store, then back home. Even if the sun is shining, we're indoors or slathered in sunscreen. That's where good old supplementation often steps in.
So the body converts vitamin D in the liver to 25-hydroxyvitamin D, calcidiol, before it turns into the active form, 1,25-dihydroxyvitamin D, also called calcitriol. My question, how many of these steps does one vitamin need, and does it come with instructions?
The instructions are basically test your levels and adjust accordingly. The entire process is more complicated than a teenager trying to pretend they've done their homework. First, your skin is supposed to generate D3 when you get enough sun. Then it has to float over to your liver to turn into 25-hydroxy-D, and from there, your body transforms it into calcitriol in the kidneys and other tissues. Each stage is key. If anything's off, you're going to end up short on the active form.
Right, and apparently being short on D is no small matter, especially for pregnant women. We're talking preeclampsia, preterm births, low birth weight. That's quite a list of undesirables.
More undesirables than a reality show audition line. In fact, there was one study that showed if pregnant women start off with vitamin D levels at or above 40 nanograms per milliliter, 0 cases of preeclampsia were reported. Zip. Nothing. That's like saying if you keep your kitchen clean, you'll never see a cockroach. It's that level of difference.
That's pretty significant. Preeclampsia can lead to serious complications for both mother and baby, right?
It sure can. It's associated with organ damage and spiking blood pressure. Combine that with a higher risk of preterm birth, and you see why these vitamin D levels matter so much. Plus, you don't want your baby arriving early. You want that miniature human to bake at just the right temperature for the full duration.
So, if you're pregnant and lacking vitamin D, you not only increase the risk of preeclampsia, you also increase the odds of a baby who shows up early and possibly with lower birth weight.
Exactly. On top of that, low vitamin D levels during pregnancy can follow the child long after birth. Some research ties it to a higher risk of asthma, eczema, type 1 diabetes, even certain cancers. It's like a domino effect that starts before the kid even shows up on the planet.
That's unsettling. I'm guessing the solution is simply don't be deficient.
Right. But the question is, how to not be deficient? That's where personalization comes in. Because apparently just telling everyone to take X number of IU per day is about as reliable as asking a parrot for stock market tips. Everyone's different.
So we're dealing with varied metabolism, genetics, even body mass index. Heavier folks might need more vitamin D because it's fat-soluble. Darker skin also reduces vitamin D synthesis from sun exposure. It's almost like we all have a personal vitamin D story.
Exactly, and that story continues with magnesium, which is a cofactor for vitamin D. If your magnesium levels are low, you might not effectively convert vitamin D into its active form. You could be supplementing like crazy and still not see your blood levels go up.
So, testing is crucial. You can't just guess.
Guessing is the norm for a lot of people. Some just pop a random supplement without ever measuring their levels. But testing is the only surefire way to know if you're in the optimal range. Without that data, you could be missing the mark entirely.
Okay, so say I decide to go for a vitamin D blood test. What's the target?
Depending on which expert you ask, anywhere from 40 nanograms per milliliter up to 80 nanograms per milliliter is considered good, with some saying the sweet spot is around 60 to 80. But for pregnant women, some doctors say at least 50. Still, I keep hearing 60 to 80 for broad health benefits.
That's not too complicated, except apparently some guidelines still say you only need 20 or 30 nanograms per milliliter, right?
Indeed. Some mainstream organizations present more conservative targets. There's also a bit of controversy. maybe influenced by old institutional biases or personal research projects. It can get political, as odd as that sounds for a vitamin.
Let me see if I have this right. Organizations say they need more data. They pick and choose which studies to highlight, and we end up with conflicting guidelines that leave most of us confused.
That's the short version. Yes. Researchers who've studied vitamin D in depth argue there's already plenty of evidence that higher levels improve outcomes. But sometimes these findings get downplayed because, well, that's how certain power structures roll.
So, while the big wheels in some circles keep turning, pregnant women remain uncertain about whether they should be targeting 50 nanograms per milliliter or 80. That's a large difference.
Correct. And that difference in recommended levels can lead to big differences in pregnancy outcomes. The conversation is shifting as more people acknowledge that adequate might not be enough for pregnancy. It's about optimal. Mothers need enough vitamin D to cover themselves and the baby. It's not a time to settle for borderline results.
That makes sense. Now, about supplementation. I keep seeing the standard 4,000 IU a day figure thrown around, but the experts say that even that might not bring you up to speed if you start out low. So is 5,000 the new black?
Potentially. Some say a baseline dose of 5,000 IU daily can help many adults, including pregnant women, get into a healthier range, provided they also have enough magnesium. But the best approach is still test your levels, adjust your dose, test again. It's like tuning a guitar. You don't just assume it's in tune, you check it.
Right, because each person is unique. Some might need more, some less. And let's not forget the role of sunshine. Just spending some quality time in the sun can go a long way, right?
Indeed. Ideally, we want natural sunlight exposure. But that's not always feasible. Between offices, cloud cover, and fear of burns, you can't always rely on the sun to power up your D. Also, if you're consuming seed oils high in linoleic acid, your skin might be more prone to sun damage, meaning you have to be extra cautious with UV exposure.
So, you're telling me that if someone's daily diet includes a lot of fried, seed oil-based goodies, it's like wearing a sign that says, "Warning, UV meltdown may occur"?
That's one way to put it. Seed oils high in linoleic acid can generate a nastier chain of reactions in the skin when you're sunbathing. It's recommended to dial down those oils for 4 to 6 months if you want safer sun exposure. If you want to be even more thorough, aim for 2 years to clear those stored oils out of your system. But that's a big ask for folks who can't part with their onion rings.
So, the path to being a happy sunbasking lizard is to reduce certain oils, get moderate sun, and keep an eye on your skin so you don't burn, right?
Exactly. There's a suggestion to test your sunburn threshold. Go out in safe intervals. If you start turning pink, you've gone too far. Over time, if you reduce the problematic oils in your diet, you may find you can handle more sun without crisping like bacon.
And if you can't get sun, or you're a new mom stuck indoors with a newborn, or living in the northern latitudes, you go for supplementation. Got it.
Bingo. Vitamin D3 supplements are available and often necessary, especially for pregnant women or for those who don't see the sun as often as a surfer in Hawaii. But again, there's that magnesium factor. If you're not consuming enough magnesium, your vitamin D might stall out.
Let's pause on magnesium a second. Where do we get it?
Leafy greens are a favorite. Nuts, seeds, that sort of thing. Although if you're depleted, diet alone might not cut it, so some people go for a magnesium supplement. It's about giving your body the full set of building blocks.
All right. So, we've established that pregnant women need to focus on D because deficiency increases the risk of preeclampsia and early deliveries. We've established that individuals should test their levels for a personalized approach, and that plenty of guidelines are behind the times.
Yes, that's the gist. And here's another nugget. Vitamin D matters for everyone, not just moms and babies. Evidence suggests it's involved in immune function, reducing the severity of various infections, and it may help with chronic disease prevention. The vitamin is multitasking, basically.
A vitamin that's a multitasker. So we've got vitamin D playing a role in bone health, immune strength, potentially mood regulation, and so on. If it did laundry and paid taxes, it'd be unstoppable.
If only. But yes, it's implicated in many processes, modulating inflammation, helping with calcium absorption, possibly influencing things like heart health. Getting enough is essential. And that's why there's a lot of frustration when big reviews come out minimizing its importance. Some experts wonder if it's simple ignorance or deeper bias.
Let's talk about that. There was mention that certain reviews selectively ignore relevant studies, leaving the impression that vitamin D is unimportant. That's odd. Why ignore data?
It's like in any field. People have pet theories or interests. Sometimes the people in charge of these reviews are entrenched in older positions, or their organizations rely on certain influences. Then they see new evidence that challenges their stance. Instead of updating guidelines, they might sideline the conflicting information. It's an unfortunate pattern.
Meanwhile, real-world observational data and basic science often suggest vitamin D is crucial, But if the big name in guidelines doesn't move forward, the general public might be left in the dark. Pun definitely intended.
Right. This can result in confusion, but a lot of practitioners who pay attention to updated research are telling folks to test their levels and maintain them closer to 60 to 80 nanograms per milliliter, especially in pregnancy and for overall health.
That might sound high to some, but apparently pregnant women naturally see a big spike in their active vitamin D levels that would look toxic in non-pregnant folks. It's how the body gears up for building a new human.
Exactly. That's why a pregnant woman's physiology needs different standards than the average adult. Trying to apply a one-size-fits-all lab reference range doesn't always work.
Makes sense. So, for practical advice, if you can, get your levels checked. Consider a separate vitamin D3 supplement instead of relying on the smaller amounts in multivitamins. Possibly start around 5,000 IU, depending on your situation. But keep checking your blood levels to dial in that sweet spot.
You said it. Also, keep magnesium in mind. And if you prefer a more natural route, get safe sun exposure, but maybe reduce those seed oils first. Then, once you're in better shape internally, you can slowly increase your time in the sun.
About the sun exposure, I hear some people set alarms so they don't cross the line into burning. Is that how it's done?
That's one approach. You go out for a limited time, and if you notice the slightest pinkness, you head indoors. Over time, as your diet changes and your skin adapts, you can safely extend your outdoor adventures. The point is to avoid burning at all costs.
That's fair. Burning is never a good look. Plus, the entire point is to get your vitamin D production up, not to replace your natural complexion with tomato red.
Exactly. The same concept applies to children and adolescents. They need vitamin D for healthy growth, and deficiency can set them up for a higher risk of immune problems and even autoimmune conditions down the line. So the earlier you address it, the better.
Let's shift to the broader point. Vitamin D deficiency is widespread, even beyond pregnancy. It plays a big role in immune response. Some studies suggest it can lessen the impact of respiratory infections. That might matter a lot for older adults or anyone who gets frequent colds.
And it's not just about sniffles. Some research suggests vitamin D might be a factor in reducing risk for chronic diseases. Sure, it's not a magic pill, but it's definitely a piece of the health puzzle. I see it as basic maintenance. You wouldn't ignore the oil level in your car. You shouldn't ignore vitamin D in your body.
So, the bottom line is that addressing vitamin D deficiency is practical, especially for pregnant women, but also for the rest of us. The controversies and guidelines might cause confusion, but the consensus from more forward-thinking researchers is that personal testing is the key.
Precisely. Individualized targets, because my vitamin D needs aren't necessarily yours. And you can't always rely on old blanket recommendations.
It strikes me that the concept of personal responsibility in health is what's shining through here. Yes, we have a lot of official guidelines, but at the end of the day, you've got to learn about your own body and what it needs.
That's the theme. It's not about ignoring mainstream advice. It's about adding the missing piece of nuance. If you're pregnant, you're building a new life inside you, so you have to ensure your vitamin D is at a level that meets both of your needs.
And if guidelines are too general, or if big reviews out there dismiss vitamin D's importance, don't be discouraged. Look at the data, talk to your practitioner about testing, and adjust your dose until you hit that optimal number.
Exactly. Also, if you're concerned about how high 60 to 80 nanograms per milliliter sounds, remember that's basically the same level you'd get from being out in the sun consistently, minus the sunburn. So it's not like we're suggesting an outlandish figure.
In other words, we're just trying to replicate nature, what we'd experience if we were all outside more often.
Yep, minus the cave person diets and saber-toothed tigers.
Thank goodness. Cavemen never had to worry about Cochrane reviews or seed oils, though. They had their own problems, I'm sure, like outrunning a mammoth.
I'd rather wrestle with supplement labels than a mammoth. But I do think we can learn from the past and how we get our vitamin D. Lots of time under a friendly sky, minimal processed junk in the diet, and a holistic approach to nutrient intake.
Well, we're near the end of our conversation. Let's recap in a smooth and straightforward way for anyone who wants the bullet points.
1. Vitamin D deficiency in pregnancy is linked to preeclampsia, preterm birth, and low birth weight. 2. We need to focus on personalized vitamin D levels because we all process this nutrient differently. 3. Some guidelines downplay its importance, but plenty of evidence suggests higher levels offer better protection for pregnant women, babies, and even the rest of us.
4. Keep magnesium in mind, as it's crucial for vitamin D metabolism. 5. If you can, get your vitamin D from sensible sun exposure, but watch out for seed oils that may enhance sun damage. Consider supplements to fill any gaps. 6. Aim for that sweet spot around 60 to 80 nanograms per milliliter and get regular testing.
And 7. Don't wait around for big organizations to come to a consensus. Own your health, do some homework, and dial in your vitamin D levels based on your personal situation. If you're pregnant, Think optimal, not just borderline acceptable.
I think that about covers it. You've been listening to Dr. Mercola's Cellular Wisdom. I'm Ethan Foster, your humble observer of everyday strangeness, reminding you that sometimes the simplest solutions, like stepping into the sunshine, are the ones we overlook.
And I'm Alara Sky, the quick-witted teacher of all things natural and logical, suggesting you shine on, literally, and keep that vitamin D in check. Because your cells can't glow if they're huddled in the dark.
Thanks for joining us. We'll be back soon with more insights that help you take care of that remarkable body of yours. Until next time, stay well, stay informed, and consider giving that sunshine vitamin a little extra love.
Catch you later, everyone. Don't forget, the sun is a powerful ally. Just don't be reckless. Now, if only it would do our laundry.
We can dream. Take care, folks.